If you have not already watched the video Project-Based Learning Explained, please do that first and then return to this video. Project-based learning is sometimes confused with students simply doing projects. Neither of them are bad, but they are different things. So in the top example here, this is not project-based learning. This is more of a project. So the teacher introduces things, they do a lot of teaching up front, they do the planning, they do the researching, and then they turn it over to the students to do the creating, improving, and presenting. In project-based learning, the students are involved right from the start in the questioning, planning, and researching phases as well. Here's another model that shows a similar idea. The top line up here shows a traditional project where we have lecture, activity, quiz a few different times, maybe a final exam, and then the students cap it off with a project. That's not a bad model, but it can be more powerful in project-based learning where the students are involved right from the beginning and the project, instead of being just a culmination, drives the entire process. So the project launch at the beginning introduces that project task right away, and then that guides all the teaching, checking for understanding, student reflection, as many times as needed, all the way up to the project being completed at the end with a final reflection. Now, the Buck Institute has created a model of project-based learning. Now this is the gold standard, and a gold standard would mean that it has all the elements. Sometimes we miss a few, but we strive to get the entire product in. Let's take a look at these different pieces. So the first one is significant content and 21st century skills. So that's what are we teaching? What is our standard? And then as well as what are the 4 C's that we want to get the students to practice and get better in. In the video that you watched, you'll notice the content standard was viruses. The 21st century skills were all of the 4 C's that we have talked about, all woven into the project. The next element, driving problem or question. What is the main task or problem that needs to be completed or solved by the students? It should be open-ended. If it's too specific, it's not really a project. It's just answering a question. In the video, it began with all the students being sick. And why were they being sick? Trying to answer that question and then how they could promote better health amongst the students. There should be sustained inquiry. It should take place over time, and it shouldn't be a quick find the answer on a page and I'm done sort of a question. The students need to develop their own answers to these open-ended questions. In the video, you'll notice that the students brainstormed questions with the instructor, and these questions then drove the rest of the project. Authenticity is very important. The project should be as real as possible. So make it seem like something that could happen in the real world. And the other piece of authenticity is it should be meaningful to the students. They need to connect with it somehow. In the video, there was an authentic audience and a real impact because the elementary students were going to learn about this in a way to try to keep them healthier. The process was authentic. The students went through this process of questioning, researching, brainstorming, collaborating, and designing. And then they worked in teams, which was real. And it also fostered the collaboration. And then at the end, they did have authentic tools. They tried to find real ways that they could communicate this message to the students. Voice and choice, extremely important. Students should have some say in the projects they create, how they work, how they use their time, and how they get to their end game. The teacher will guide this, of course, but the students need voice and choice. In the video, one prime example is they got to choose how they would communicate their findings to their audience. Critique and revision is oftentimes overlooked, but it is a very important part of the process. Students need checkpoints along the way to know if they are on track so that they can revise and become better. We sometimes need to teach them how to reflect and how to question their learning and to model that and mold that a little bit for them, but it's a critical process. Otherwise they finish and they find out they missed the mark on day 2 and they've wasted a lot of time. In the video, there was some sharing about the process and some reflection. Catlin Tucker has a nice comment. She says, don't spend 90% of your energy time giving feedback on the finished product. Put that 90% into giving students feedback as they work. That will allow them to formulate a better final product. And then we do need a public product. Now, the product should be shared with somebody, and ideally it's more than just the teacher. The bigger the audience, the more authentic the audience, the more that really fuels authentic motivation to get the product right and to do a good job on the project. It raises the level of concern. In the video, this was presented to the elementary students as well as their parents. Now there is a checklist. You can kind of take a look at that and go through, and when you're finished with your project, make sure you've hit on all of those elements if you are shooting for that gold standard. A couple little extras here. I love this comment. When children create for the world, they make it good. When children create only for their teacher, they make it good enough. And that's true. We raise the level of concern and the standard when we have an authentic audience. And also, if everyone turns in a project that looks the same, you really don't have a project, you have a recipe. And we want students to have projects. And finally, if we do it right, we really will help the students develop the 4 C's, critical skills as they prepare for the world after school.